Hello everyone, welcome to the first video of this course where I'll be introducing you to the concept of web enumeration and information gathering. So let's get started. I don't want to waste too much time because I know a lot of you are really excited to actually getting your hands dirty with regards to performing web app enumeration and information gathering. So the reason why I want to sort of cover this is because, again, it's very important that I highlight what information gathering is, what enumeration is, and then sort of break down the two types of information gathering that we have, because that difference is very important, especially when you're specifically referring to the legalities and the type of authorization required. All right, so what is information gathering? Again, not in the context of the web, but really in the context of penetration testing in general. Information gathering is the first step of any penetration test and involves gathering or collecting information about an individual, company, website, or system that you are targeting. The more information you have on your target, the more successful you will be during the latter stages of a penetration test. And of course, information gathering is typically broken down into two categories or two types. You have passive information gathering and you have active information gathering, which again can be closely construed as enumeration, but I'll explain that difference here. So passive information gathering essentially involves gathering as much information as possible without actively engaging with the target. Well, what does this mean? Well, let's say we have a website. Let's use that as the example. Let's say we have a website and we have been hired to perform a pen test on that website to identify security vulnerabilities and weaknesses or misconfigurations for that matter. Well, when we talk about passive info gathering, this essentially involves utilizing publicly available information, to essentially learn more about the target website. So what do I mean by this? Well, what is publicly available? So taking a look at the website, seeing what we can explore, what web pages we can explore without any authorization or without running any intrusive tools. Trying to look for information about the site on public databases, utilizing, search engine filters or performing Google Docs, sort of using what is publicly available to learn more about the target. And then, of course, active information gathering involves gathering as much information as possible by actively engaging with the target system or the website. And of course, you will require authorization in order to perform active information gathering. So this essentially involves, you actively engaging with the website in a way that could be construed as malicious. What does that mean? Well, I can give you a few examples. For example, testing the database that is being used by the web application or the website and trying to authenticate to it, playing around with authentication or trying to perform a brute force attack on one of the website's authentication forms, so on and so forth. So again, I know that may those examples may be a part of another phase of web application penetration testing, like testing authorization or authentication, but I just want to give you that example. Essentially, or simply put, passive is when you're not actively engaging with the target system, website, etc. Active is when you are. So, when you're, a good example that we'll be exploring is performing DNS zone transfer. In that case, you are actively engaging with the actual, name server or DNS server to try and perform a zone transfer in order to identify internal DNS records or subdomains for that matter. So that's one of the examples there. So gathering information about the target web server or web application is the initial phase of any penetration test and is arguably the most important phase of the entire engagement. Now, one of the nuances of this phase is that there is no unnecessary information. Everything you collect should be recorded or saved for future use. And in the context of web application penetration testing, the information collected in this phase will become extremely useful in understanding the website or web application logic and structure during the initial access or exploitation phase. And specifically in the context of testing web applications, this will become useful in performing additional tests or essentially testing the target website or web application for specific vulnerabilities. So the more you know about the website or the web application, the more information you collect, the more you enumerate. This will all be important once you get to those phases, because you've already built an idea, a map, an understanding of what you're dealing with from a technical perspective, from the context of the web server and how that is set up, so on and so forth. So it's very, very important. That's what I'm trying to stress. All right, now, what information are we looking for? And how does this all tie into doing or performing information gathering and enumeration as thoroughly as possible? Well, we'll be touching upon the OWASP Web Security Testing Guide in the next video, but the type of information we're looking for are, of course, going to be website and domain ownership. So trying to identify, who owns the domain, trying to identify emails, contact details, getting an understanding as to how old the website is, trying to find older versions of the website, and then identifying IP addresses, domains, and subdomains. Trying to see if you can find the IP address of the web server, the actual DNS server or the name servers for that particular website, additional domains or virtual hosts, and then, of course, subdomains. And the next piece of information we're looking for are hidden files and directories. And then under the hosting infrastructure, we're typically looking to identify what web server technology is being used, what other services are running on the web server. If there is a content management system, we need to know more about it. Is it WordPress? Is it Joomla? Is it Drupal? Is it vulnerable to any vulnerabilities? What plugins does it have installed? So on and so forth. And this will also tie into the database. So we're essentially trying to learn as much information as possible about the target website or web application and its underlying infrastructure. And then, of course, a final piece of information that's very important is the presence of defensive solutions like a web application firewall or a proxy or anything that might be a potential hindrance to our activities in the future when we're actually testing the website or web app for vulnerabilities. So very, very important. Now, under passive information gathering, I've sort of sorted, all of the techniques that fall under this particular type of information gathering based on the fact that we are not actively engaging with the target site in a way that may be construed as malicious. So sort of using what is already available. And of course, that what falls under this is identifying domain names and domain ownership information, discovering hidden or disallowed files and directories, identifying web server IP addresses and DNS records, identifying the web technologies being used on target sites, web application firewall detection, identifying subdomains through passive techniques, of course, and identifying the website content structure specifically through passive crawling and or spidering. And then under active information gathering, we have the process of downloading and analyzing a website or web application source code, performing port scanning and service discovery to see what other services are running on the web server, which then ties into web server fingerprinting. We also have web application scanning, more specifically web application vulnerability scanning, performing DNS zone transfers, and subdomain enumeration via brute force attacks. So now that we've gotten an idea as to what information we're looking for and how it's categorized based on its nature, I think you'll be able to see that we might have a potential issue. And what is this issue? Well, the issue is that this is a lot of all that I've just highlighted. These are a lot of checks or tests that you need to perform. It would be very nice if we had a checklist or something to guide us. Well, that's where the OWASP Web Security Testing Guide comes into play. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at in the next video, because that'll give us a better way of tracking and understanding what we're doing, and sort of acts as a checklist whenever you're performing a web application penetration test in general. So with that being said, let's move on to the next video, and we'll be exploring the OWASP Web Security Testing Guide. So I'll see you there.